Fortnite just dropped their first update of the season, and with it were some massive nerfs to both the Typhoon Blade and the Void Oni mask. I want to talk about why Fortnite made these changes and which item you should be carrying in competitive. Unfortunately, we also had the Divisional Cups break on NA. They had to move around all the tournaments. I want to talk about whether I think this bug is going to keep happening throughout the season, and I do want to talk about which trios are looking the best in the Divisional Cups. We had Mongrel's team unfortunately struggling a little bit, while teams like Peterbot and Clicks absolutely dominated. There's lots to talk about. Let's jump into it. Before we get into talking about the tournaments, let's talk about the huge update Fortnite made to a few of the weapons a few days ago, including a massive nerf to the Typhoon Blade, which has upset a lot of people. If you guys have played it all in the last few days, you probably noticed what the nerf is, but basically, this is what the movement looked like with the Typhoon Blade before the nerf, when you could jump off structures, you could edit builds and go really, really far, and this is what it looks like now. It's almost hilarious how bad it is. Like, it's almost depressing to look at. I am quite upset to see this change, and I think a lot of people are getting this wrong. A lot of people are saying, oh, why did Epic think the Typhoon Blade was too strong when the Void Oni mask is still good? I don't think it's necessarily that Fortnite thought the Typhoon Blade was too strong. It's just that we were using the item in a way that was unintended. This was technically an exploit. And even when people come up with exploits in Fortnite that actually are good for the game, a lot of people agree they're skillful, they're fun, they're not hurting the game, Fortnite will often still remove them. And that's what they did with this dashing ability. It has made the Void Oni mask just by far the best mobility in my opinion, which is a little bit sad. It was really cool to see that we had a debate between what was the best. Should I carry the Typhoon Blade? Should I carry the Oni mask? I had people debating it in my comments on my YouTube videos, in my Twitch chat. No one could really decide which was best because it depended on how you used it. Now the Void Oni mask is pretty much just objectively better. At the start of the season, I was a little bit confused. I actually got it backwards. I thought in solos, people would carry the Void Oni mask because you could just teleport around. You didn't have to stick together as a team. And in trios, you would carry the Typhoon Blade because it's easy to stick together. It was actually the opposite. More players running the Typhoon Blade in solos because you could move around so quickly. You could dash off cones, stairs, jump, spin, go into a box. It was a lot more fluid. And then they would run the Void Oni mask in trios because it was actually easier to coordinate that and stick together. Now, from all the tournaments I'm watching, pretty much just everyone is running the Void Oni mask. I do think in solos, the Typhoon Blade will still be stronger than trios. There's still some cool things you could do with it. The attack on the weapon is actually still quite strong if you catch people off guard. But at this point, pros are pretty much only running the Typhoon Blade until they get the Oni mask. Now, the Void Oni mask didn't get away without getting nerfed either. It did get nerfed, but only a little bit. When you shoot out the orb, it doesn't go as fast now, and it doesn't go as far. But the nerf isn't really that noticeable. Most players wouldn't even notice. You probably haven't even been able to tell that it got nerfed without me telling you. The only time you really do notice is when you're trying to throw it up a really, really big structure, like over a mountain, or you're on rotating zones and you really want to go as far as you can. I actually think this Oni mask update is almost a bit of a buff, which a lot of people aren't talking about. In the early and mid game, when you want to throw it as far as you possibly can, it has nerfed it a little bit, but in the end game, it's actually way easier to control now, and there's way less times where you're going to go into zone accidentally. You can wait a little bit before activating it now, which gives you a lot more control because it isn't going as far. So ultimately, I wouldn't even say this was a nerf necessarily. It was just kind of a readjustment of how the weapon went, which again makes the Oni mask even stronger than the Typhoon Blade now. Now, one of the only items that is actually being complained about this season is the Holo AR for being too strong, and it did get a very slight nerf. It does 1 less damage in every rarity. But again, you probably wouldn't even notice it unless I told you. You really don't feel this nerf at all. It's interesting that Fortnite is trying to nerf the Holo AR. They did also change around how the recoil and the bloom works when you're shooting at hip fire to make it less accurate when you're hip firing it because it was way too accurate. But ultimately, the Holo AR is still extremely strong and pretty much everyone is still using it. Now, one of the main guns that's been too weak that a lot of people are asking to get buffed did actually get buffed, the Oni shotgun. It got buffed pretty considerably with how much damage it does, but it's still just extremely weak. It doesn't do enough damage. It only has 2 shots. It reloads incredibly slow, and even with those 2 shots, it is almost impossible to take someone down, even if you hit back-to-back max damage, which is extremely hard to do with how tight the reticle is. There's just no reason to run this shotgun right now, at least in builds. No builds, maybe the range on it helps you a little bit, but it's interesting to see that Fortnite has dialed in on the 2 weapons that most people are complaining about, the Oni shotgun being too weak and the Holo AR being too strong. So even though these buffs and nerfs didn't really change that much. It looks like they're heading in the right direction, which is really, really good to see. It's interesting to see we also got our first Fortnite OG update. Fortnite now made it that chest and ammo boxes spawn 100% of the time. Ammo boxes drop more ammo, slurp juice and traps now drop more, and epic and legendary weapons do not drop in floor loot anymore, which was a pretty well received change across the board. Mostly the fact that chests now have 100% spawn rate, so you can finally find an extra few minis or big pots. So across the board, it looks like Fortnite is listening to the community. They're going in the right direction. Whether the buffs or nerfs went far enough and you ended up truly happy, they're at least dialed in on what people are actually asking for and going in the right direction. So chapter 6, which has already been off to one of the best starts of any chapter, is going even better with the direction we're going with the development right now. As usually happens with Fortnite, when we get this much good, there has to be a little bit of bad. It just feels like you need to balance out the universe. We did have our first tournament bug. The NA and NA West, sorry, NA Central and NA West FNCS Divisional Cups did completely break today. They've now been rescheduled for Saturday, which means Saturday is going to have day 2 opens and finals on the same day, which has a lot of pros not too happy. EU ran perfectly fine. Every other region ran fine. I have no idea why a lot of these bugs happened during NA. At least Fortnite did handle it pretty well. This is one of the best solutions. I was almost half expecting them just to cancel the second day and just go with all the scores from day 1, because all of these tournaments, the points are combined across both of them, but Fortnite decided to just cancel it and start a new one. The only thing that upset a lot of people on top of this was it took them about an hour and a half of saying absolutely nothing before they finally announced what is actually going on, which wasn't the best. But again, we're getting so much good right now from Fortnite. I'll take a little bit of bad. It's still going really, really well considering. That means we can still talk about how EU went and at least the first day of NA went. And all I gotta say, the biggest change you'll notice right now is no cheaters, at least as far as I can see. I've watched a whole bunch of competitive Fortnite now. I haven't seen any cheaters, and if they are getting banned or they're not placing on the leaderboards, because this is one of the first finals I have seen in a very long time where there is not a single cheater on the leaderboard. You go from last season where every single finals was riddled with at least a few teams in there and a few teams that people weren't really sure about, to now at least on EU, the region that ran properly with both days, having one of the most stacked top 33 teams playing in the finals I have ever seen. And that takes into account the fact that we still have a day before finals, so if there are any cheaters that slip through, Fortnite has made the schedule so they can ban them before they get to play finals. So far, I am extremely happy with the changes Fortnite's made. I know a lot of you guys got caught in the crossfire without being able to play tournaments until you get 14 events played. I know it's super unfortunate, but the results speak for themselves. That change, along with the fact that if you play with a cheater and they get banned, you also get banned for 28 days, appears to have massively cut down the amount of cheaters we have in tournaments right now, which is a huge overall W. Kicking off with the EU leaderboard, we have Ping, Wox, and Malabuka putting on one of the most ridiculous performances I have ever seen. They played 13 matches. Remember, both days of tournaments are combined, so you have 20 total matches. They played 13 of them and got 987 points. They averaged 75.92 points across 13 games. This trio is looking absolutely ridiculous. We had Swizzy, Queasy, and Mustache, a brand new trio on EU, also find really, really good success, finishing on 887 points with playing 19 of their matches. Then in third place, we had Chap, Chicho, and Teeny on 851. But again, the leaderboard is a who's who. We had the Danish trio of Tripper and Thomas and Fredoxy in fourth, Seti, Hari, and Cami, Sky, Refscard, Scroll, Chris, Volko, and Skivvy, all a who's who of EU. And don't worry, we aren't missing the big names. We did have Mongrel, Savage, and Panzer clutch it up in 25th. It was a bit closer than I would have liked. With the insane start Mongrel, Savage, and Panzer have had to this season, I was really hoping for a really dominant start to the divisional cups as well, like we've seen with the Evaluation Cup and the FNCS Trial. They still did really well. 25th is still very solid, but they did leave it down to the second day and the last couple games where they did manage to clutch up and handle the pressure, which is really cool to see. It's great to see they can handle the pressure when it's on them. They did only just fall behind Vico, Veno, and Flixie in 24th, who are one of the favorites to win FNCS right now. So I wouldn't see them coming 25th and panic. It is opens after all. It's the first time we've seen this format, so a lot of really big teams did struggle, but they still at least qualified, which is the big part. And now we get to finally see how they're going to do in set lobbies. A lot of these teams have been playing the Eval Cups, but when you're playing only for the win, you only get money if you win. Teams play a little bit different. They play way more aggressive for height. They make different choices they're not going to do when it's an actual proper set lobby lobby where consistency matters. So we're yet to see how any of these teams really fare in a proper set lobby tournament. I'm so excited to see who's looking good. Moving on over to NA, and remember, we still have one more day to go. This is only the first 10 games in the first 3 hours. Of course, they're going to run the second round on Saturday, like I talked about. But we have Muzz, Clix, and Rise on top. Yet again, they won the FNCS trial, and they're currently winning FNCS Divisional Cup, which is really, really awesome to see. 645 points. They're like 70 points clear of second, which is Reapboog and Threats, another massive team. Muzz, Clix, and Rise's consistency was extremely solid. Their match history was a second, first, sixth, fifth, first, fourth, first, second. Their worst placement across 8 games was a 6th place with high elims as well. They are playing phenomenal. I'm really, really excited to see this trio do crazy coming into FNCS. In 3rd place, we had Batman Booger, Mason Yomzo. Again, one of the most underrated teams on NA right now. They're playing extremely well. Aviv, Skittles, and Chimp. Interesting to see this team is still dominating, even despite dropping Chubbs and picking up Aviv. Aviv, Skittles, and Chimp still looking like one of the best trios on NA. A real sleeper team that, again, not a lot of people are talking about. And then in 5th place, the team we all expected to see up there, Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot. They're doing really, really well right now. They did play through all 10 matches. They had a bit of a rough patch. They got a 27th, a 20th, and a 27th 3 games in a row, but as Peterbot often does, what they lack in consistency with placements, they often make up for with huge pop-off games with placements. They got 34 elim win, they got a 23 elim 6th. They have really, really high elim games, which makes up for the placement. And when elims are worth so much, especially in the finals, it's gonna be very interesting to see whether they can find that success. I do think we're gonna see a lot of Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot not doing as well as you would expect in opens tournaments, because brutal boxcars is such, in my opinion, a bad drop for opens. As soon as you're contested, it messes up all the pacing around getting the trade. It really does mess everything up. But when it comes to set lobbies, when most likely they're going to be uncontested because no one wants to drop on Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot, I find they'll do far better. So don't judge their open placements too much compared to their finals placements, even though it is a 5th. I'm talking like they came almost last. They came 5th, but I don't think we'll see as much of Peterbot being at the top of opens and finals leaderboards like we were expecting, just because of their drop spot. I could be wrong. Maybe they'll change my mind. Maybe they'll pop off from brutal boxcars. It's just a very rough spot for opens. I also wanted to talk about some of the lower division tournaments we don't normally do, just because they've been so stacked. I'm not going to run through the whole leaderboard, but if you guys have been playing, you know what I'm talking about. Division 2 and Division 3 games have been amazing. This format, for whatever complaints you have, is giving amazing practice to up and coming developing players. Every single time I watch the Div 3 lobbies, watching the different region teams try to pop off and, you know, get into the higher division to play other regions cash cups, the games are stacked. I'm talking active Storm Surge in the high skill-based matchmaking, which is just so awesome. And there's 20 of these games a week available to anyone who wants to play. It's super awesome to see, and I really hope people are starting to understand why Fortnite has done this format. I know the lack of solo victory cups is annoying for people up and coming and trying to get their first earnings, but I promise you, in this new format with these solo cash cups and with these divisional cups, you will improve at the game so much faster. You will get so much better with way more accessible practice. It will be worth in the long run, even if you maybe have less chance of getting $100 here and there. I promise you, in the end, you will enjoy it more. And we also get our first look at the proper solo cash cups starting today. I'll be watching them all day on my Twitch channel. If you want to swing by, I'm really excited to watch solo cash cups that aren't a victory cup final. It should be really, really cool to see who is the best when it comes to consistency, not just getting the win.